Hi everyone, it's Dr. Reese Goodall here, and today I want to talk about calls for papers, specifically what they are, and then how you can find them. I'm going to give you some tips and some general places that I would suggest looking, and some advice on how, if you're thinking of submitting to journals, to conferences, to edited collections, etc., you can start finding the options that are out there. So before we begin with actually where you find call for papers, I suppose the key question is what actually is a call for paper. It's something that if you're certainly in an early stage of your career, it's something that you may not have come across. Essentially, a call for papers is kind of like an official invitation to the academic community as a whole, or to whoever it's sent to contribute work to something, be that a conference, be that a journal, be that an edited collection, be that something else, a symposium, who knows. But it's an official invitation that sort of lays out the framework for what the thing is about. It gives you key details about the kinds of things that the organisers, the editors, whoever are looking for. It gives you key details like deadlines, word counts, what you need to do to actually officially submit. Normally writing an abstract and providing a bio, but there can be changes to that. And it gives you sort of, kind of, in many cases, a sense of where this work will end up. So if it's a book, if it's an edited collection, say, what are the plans for this book? What is the scope of this book? So a good call for papers gives you sort of essentially all the info you need. To understand what the work is, to understand what the thing is that is soliciting papers, and also give you all the details you need in order to apply or send something in that can sort of potentially be accepted for that work. Here we go, lots and tips and tricks on how to find this call for papers. It must be stressed before I begin that my background is an art subject. I'm a language student. I was a language scholar and I'm a film scholar. So sort of the tips I have are specific really about art and art subjects. Many of them will be more general to social sciences and sciences as well, but just bear that in mind if you think things don't directly apply. So key step number one is, I would say, ask people in the field. And it's not asking them, have you got a call for papers coming out, although some of them may do. But ask them where they look. Ask them the kind of places that they would look. And choose the people who are going to be able to guide you here. So sort of key choices here. Supervisors. Supervisors, if you're doing a PhD or some sort of extended piece of research, it's their job, to help you and sort of support you as you complete the work, but also to sort of help you in the steps that come next, and sort of giving you access to potential research is part of that. So ask them, what list do they use? If there's someone who is in your area, ask them where they find these calls. Similarly, if you go to things like conferences, if you meet speakers who are in the same field, again, ask the same questions. Where are they finding these calls? They will give you lots of useful advice, and I'm going to share, I think, many of the sort of the key, more obvious examples in the next few sections of this video. Ask people who are in the field already. Ask them, in the people who know the area that you're working in, what they would do. Where would they look in order to find these calls that sort of really capture where the field is at. Suggestion number one is dedicated websites. There are many websites out there that essentially pull together all calls that they come across. They pull from a wide base of databases and mailing lists, etc. And there are some that personally I would swear by, and there are some that sort of are normally my go-to. I'm going to link them down below, but I'm a real big fan of CFP List, which is great. It pulls out a loads of calls, and you can filter it by subject area. And then I also rate the website and the UPenn call for papers website. Again, it has predominantly arts calls and breaks it down into sort of perhaps a different selection of subjects. So those are two that I know of, and there may be others out there. I'd love people to comment if they use other ones as well. And also websites for key bodies in your area. So if you are I don't know, a historian, say? Are there websites of historical societies? Are there websites of academics working in the areas that you have? Because it's very likely that they will also pull through and be able to provide a list of calls that would likely be relevant to people in their sort of niche, people who are likely to be looking at those spaces, works that are relevant to that body. Often, this is a great thing as well. If these spaces exist, if they exist, you can find brilliant, normally examples of these websites. These people essentially collating calls and other sources of info that are relevant to people in that field. I would complement the website look with subscribing to key mailing lists. So subscribe to key lists that exist in your field. And there are multiple ways to find these. Again, ask supervisors. Ask people you know who are working in the same area as you are. And ask academics you know generally, if you happen to encounter them. But you can also find these quite well just by sort of basic Google searching. Search your area, history, academic mailing list, whatever. Narrow it down, sort of history, 20th century academic mailing list, etc. A lot of these you can find quite easy just by basic searching. And there are websites again, and I'll link one down below, which collate mailing lists that they know. They collate mailing lists by subject area, by sort of the reach. It's useful to have, because essentially people would assume if you're subscribed to the history mailing list, you're going to be interested in history content. So, history book releases, history events, but also history calls. They want, essentially, the people subscribed to that list are highly likely to be the same people who would respond to a call. So it's very, very likely, it's very usual for an academic to advertise on key mailing lists. And if you're on these lists, you're likely to have many of the calls that you're looking for essentially dropped into your inbox. And lastly, I would say that social media is the thing. We're in an online world, and you can connect with people that you know, and you can connect with people in your area who you might never meet through the power of social media. So it can be really useful if you're developing sort of an academic profile on your media, to follow key researchers, to follow sort of names that you know, to follow key journals, to follow key publishers if there's a sort of specific publisher in your area, and to follow networks and bodies. If there are any particular networks, if there are any sort of major bodies that are in your area, follow those as well. Because amongst the things that they are likely to share on social media are, again, links to calls for papers. I've certainly discovered a few calls for papers myself from people I've followed online. Similarly, when you're online, you can use hashtags to kind of narrow it down. And again, hashtag CFP, short call for papers, can normally bring up a lot of results on sort of whatever network you use it. Of course, you have to do a lot of filtering and whatnot. If you're doing it that way, it's likely that you're going to get a load of stuff that is not relevant to you in the slightest. But it can be, again, it's a great space because someone who is putting together a work will try and reach people everywhere in 99% of the time. So being on social media and connecting with people who are doing that kind of work, it gives you a space. It gives you an opportunity to perhaps connect with them and see that work, to see that call in a different sphere. I know myself, when I've written call for papers, when I've disseminated, and we can talk about that in a later video if it's of interest, how you do that, how you write one and put one together. I used a combination of mailing lists, I used a combination of conference promotion, and I used social media, my own social media, to share these ideas, to share the calls, knowing that essentially I was going to be interacting with people who would know what I was talking about, who'd know the conferences that we were pitching, who'd know the edited collections we were sort of getting ideas for, or who would know people. They would likely be able to share it. And a lot of that, it goes a long way. Sort of, even people see it, even if it's not for them, they may very well know someone who can help. So I think social media and sort of being able to manipulate it and use it carefully to your own advantage, if you're using it as a promotional avenue, is really, really useful. So here we go. These were some of my tips on where you find calls for papers. In future videos I can talk about the questions of how you would respond to one. And I can talk about how you would write one if you're in that place where you're wanting to do a conference, to do an edited collection, to do something that would demand a call for papers. If there is interest in that, please do comment below and let me know. I'm sort of very, very keen to do stuff that is useful. It's worth stating, I think, sort of the final key piece of advice is that sort of everyone has done this for the first time, right? It's a terrifying thing to do it, to find a call for papers and then to submit an idea for the first time, but everyone has done it. Everyone has had a first time. Everyone, some of these phenomenal academics who've been around for sort of 40 years, and there was a time when they would again had to go through the process of finding a call, putting forward a thing, and it being their first time of putting forward an idea. So everyone does this. It's kind of a rite of passage almost in the academic world. But having tips, being able to sort of focus your search and find ideas, to find spaces that are likely to be useful for you, is sort of step one, really. I can talk more about calls for papers. If people are interested, please do let me know. If you have any other ideas, please do share your comments below as well. That would be incredibly, incredibly useful. Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and make sure to ring a bell so you know when I'm releasing new content. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and I will look forward to seeing you all in the next one.